Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
And what is up, you guys? Tony Metro here with you on a Thursday night. Maybe you're watching the college football playoff. Ole Miss in Miami in the first half of that game. But I wanted to check in with everybody here. And as the thumbnail on the title implies, we are in the middle of a winter freeze. This MLB offseason, man, they have been slow and drawn out for a couple of years now. But my goodness, this one just feels maybe like the longest of them all in recent memory, and partly probably because of how the Mets have handled it. Of course, losing so many of their homegrown and long tenured players and not really doing a whole lot to replace them, being rumored to be in on so many different players that have either signed with other teams or in the case of Cody Bellinger and Kyle Tucker are still out there playing the field. So it has just been a slog of a winter and an MLB offseason so far. So I'll be completely honest with you. This is a very open forum tonight because I don't have a whole lot to tell you about. There's really not a whole lot going on. We have a few new reports and potential new suitor for Bichette, someone that Mets fans would definitely not be very happy to hear are going after the star shortstop. So we will get into that and anything else that you guys want to talk about. Again, open forum Q&A. But guys, you know the drill. Tony Metro, daily Mets content here on YouTube. You may be watching on Twitter as well, but follow me on all the different platforms. The link to those are in the description of this YouTube video down below. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram as well. Leave this video a like. Really appreciate it. Goes a long way toward helping the channel out. And we are trying to get to our new goal of 6K subscribers on YouTube by opening day 2026. So we got a little bit of time, but share this with a friend of yours, a Mets fan, a baseball fan. And if you're not already subscribed, go smash that button right now. So appreciate it very much. Let's go right to the chat. New workout 1698 Mets. I'm not going to say that word or we can't be monetized, but okay. Ben Kurt says, I still can't believe we let Pete Alonso go. I can't believe it either, Ben, because just today as I was getting the video of the interview I did with Derek, if you're watching this, Dex, I apologize. I mistakenly introduced Dex Henry, who I did the interview with, just posted that video. It's up on my YouTube channel right now. Go ahead and watch that. You can do it right now and come back. I'll still be going live, or you can watch it after. But Dex Henry, who is the digital sports anchor for SMY and for New York Post. Dex Henry, Derek Henry, how can I not mistakenly call him that, right? My bad. Anyway. Dex Henry, I completely got off my train of thought, but as I was editing that video, I was watching Pete Alonso's introductory press conference with the Baltimore Orioles, and I gotta agree, Ben, it hurts even more now that I'm looking back on it. I thought, they say time heals all wounds. I don't think in the case of Pete Alonso leaving the Mets, because I watched that video today and it still doesn't feel real. It's still hurting inside to see that. So I'm with you, man. Two Cats, what's up, Two Cats? It's been a minute, man. How you doing? I hope you're okay. He says, so I still think this Mets team could be very dangerous next year with the right moves to be made. Praying and hoping they will be the biggest threat to the Dodgers. Man, the Mets have a long way to go before they are ready to go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers, even in what you might consider a down year, at least as far as their regular season, still went on to win the World Series. And I know it took some miracles to have Miguel Vargas hit the game-tying homer with an out in Game 7, in the ninth inning of Game 7 against Toronto, and then that crazy play that he had at the plate, throwing the Blue Jay out with what would have been the winning run. But the Mets are still so far off from the Dodgers. I mean, they didn't even have a fully healthy rotation this past season. And I mean, they are going to be suitors for Tarik Skubal at the trade deadline. I would not be shocked at all to see that happen. And you guys probably saw the video I posted earlier today where I said, look, if the Dodgers do end up signing Kyle Tucker, the Mets should just throw in the towel. And I hate to be that guy, the whole I'm taking my ball and I'm going home mentality, right? But at that point, why even invest any more money in the Mets payroll at this point? I mean, they have no chance of catching them. I mean, at this point, I already think the Mets are probably still the third best team in the National League East. And I'm not trying to sound like a Debbie Downer, but I think that the Braves are going to have a bounce back season. I don't think they're going to be under 500 like they were this past year. And then you got the Phillies, who admittedly, yeah, their window is closing, but they are still better than the Mets are right now at the moment. So we will see what happens. Carson Bench could come up and be our version of Pete Crow Armstrong. Pete Crow Armstrong, who should have been on the Mets to begin with, right? And maybe Nolan McClain is going to continue to be an ace. And Jonah Tong comes up early and develops into one of the top young pitchers in the game. And we also get some huge strides from Jet Williams out at second base or wherever he may end up playing. Probably not second base with Marcus Semien, but I do think the Mets are still very far off away from the Dodgers. I do think that they could fight for a playoff spot. Again, offseason's not over. Who knows? Maybe Cody Bellinger is going to be on the team. Maybe Kyle Tucker. Maybe Framber Valdez. Maybe there's going to be a crazy trade none of us are thinking about. But at this current moment right now, the Mets are very far off from competing with LA. But we shall see. I appreciate the positivity too, Cats, and good to hear from you. Tony HVAC, what's up? That was a great interview. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it. Yes, Dexter Henry is awesome. I'm sure you guys have seen him on Twitter, or if you have cable and watch SNY, but he's mostly on the digital side of things. Go give Dexter a follow. He just goes by Dex as well, but D Henry TV is his handle for Twitter, and I'm pretty sure for everything else. But yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Tony. Let's see. Enrique Garcia. What up, Tony? I'm new to your channel, and I look forward to hearing some great content. Thank you, Enrique. I appreciate you subscribing, man. That's the goal here, just to pump out daily content for you guys. I try to make it my highest quality that I possibly can. And unfortunately, things are slow right now in the off season, so it's hard to generate content sometimes, but I'm doing my very best. So I appreciate you being here for the ride, Enrique, very much. Two Cats, I have a weird feeling the AL East will be stacked next year and the Yankees will finish fourth. I hope so, at least. Wow, okay. Well, the Yankees haven't done anything. I still think they have a very talented roster. We will see in terms of their rotation. If everything bounces correctly for them and Garrett Cole returns as normal, like a normal Garrett Cole, post-Tommy John surgery, Carlos Rodon returns from his injury situation, they're going to have one of the best rotations in baseball, no doubt about it. I think their lineup, I mean, they were the highest scoring offense in the American League last year. That was with Cody Bellinger, so what's their plan there? But yeah, as it stands right now, the AL East is looking highly, highly competitive, where the Blue Jays are trying to repeat for that title. You got Baltimore loading up, and not just in terms of Pete Alonso, but also acquiring what's his name from Angels, the outfielder. I can't think of it. Taylor Ward. And then also trying to add to their rotation, as they have been rumored to be in on Ranger Suarez as well. So yeah, the American League East is looking highly competitive. But wow, could you imagine the Yankees finishing in fourth? My gosh, their fans' heads would literally explode, right? Let's see. Sal Capello, what's up, man? He says, Uncle Stevie wants to be like the Dodgers. Well, signing Tucker is a Dodgers type of move. Look, I agree 100%. And look, the Dodgers have not always been this pinnacle of success. Yes, they have been a consistent playoff team for the better part of the last decade and a half. I will not deny that. But we all seem to forget the early years of the Guggenheim ownership. And I've said this before, but like, think about that trade that they made with the Red Sox years ago, where they acquired Adrian Gonzalez and Hanley Ramirez, but they took on that poison pill of a contract that was Carl Crawford and the ramifications that it had on them. And yes, they were consistently still going to the playoffs, but that was also because they had a really impressive young core that was coming up from the system. I mean, Corey Seager was coming up at that time, and a handful of other names. And don't forget, they stole a guy away from the Mets that we just threw out like he was garbage, and that was Justin Turner. And look what he turned into for them. And they only repeated that recently in the form of Max Muncy. So I understand what you're saying, and I want Kyle Tucker. I want Cody Bellinger. I want the Mets to spend big. But I think they are taking a little bit of a step back and realizing you just can't throw big money at all of your problems. And some things need to be solved internally through the development of your farm system and bringing prospects up and them having an impact, and then finding some diamonds in the rough. We don't want to hear that, especially coming off of 2025. And I am right there with you guys. But I just think this is the philosophy and the way that the Mets are going to go into 2026, barring a big signing of Bellinger or Tucker or maybe even Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez, someone of that ilk. So let's see. Elvin Solano with a great comment on my video for the interview there with Dexter Henry. But Elvin says Van Halen had Diamond Dave. This is it. Okay. Van Halen had Diamond Dave, but the Mets have Discount Dave. The future is bright. SMH. Okay. You could have went Dumpster Dave too. I will never refer to him as that, but you got Dumpster Dave, you got Discount Dave, Trader. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough time to be David Stearns right now with this fan base, no doubt about it. Two Cat says, I saw a funny video of a Mets account posting my favorite ball drop from New Year's, and they posted the video of Aaron Judge dropping the ball in the World Series. Oh my gosh. Never let Yankee fans live that down, by the way, because 2015, when the Mets choked their World Series away with all those ugly, terrible errors in Game 4 and Game 5, Daniel Murphy and Lucas Duda's throw, I never heard the end of it from my friends and family who are Yankee fans. So make sure that the Yankees never hear the end of their total choke job in Game 5 of the 2024 World Series. Max Bradford says, what are the chances of signing Tucker, Valdez, and Bellinger? Whoa. So all three or one each individually? If you're asking about all three, 0%. There is no chance in hell the Mets are going to sign all three of those guys. On an individual basis, I will say that Tucker is probably less than 20%. I think that he's going to go for the long-term contract. I think the Blue Jays are going to give it to him. If not, he's going to go for the short AAV deal, and then it's a coin toss between the Mets and the Dodgers, and the Dodgers always seem to get what they want. So I'm giving that less than 20%. As far as the Mets signing for Framber Valdez, I will give that 35%. The Mets have made it very clear they do not want to go past 3 years on anybody, and I'm sorry, but unless Valdez does not have a deal longer than 3 years on the table from another team, why would he sign for anything less? If he has anything more available to him in an offer from another organization, the guy is 32 years old. This is his one and only time to play free agency in his career. I mean, he is not likely to get another serious contract at the end of this upcoming one that he signed. So I do not anticipate Framber Valdez signing for anything less than 4 years, which personally I would be fine with the Mets offering. I just don't think Stearns is going to do that, which is very disappointing if I'm being honest. And Bellinger, I think it's 50%. I really think it's 50-50 for Bellinger. We heard that the Yankees offered a second offer to Bellinger, which to me tells me they're getting very nervous, a little desperate maybe, and they're just kind of negotiating against themselves. But the Mets could easily just slide right in there. He is a really good fit for this team for his defensive versatility, to bring in another bat that they really truly need in the departure of Pete and Brandon Nimmo. So I will give that a 50-50 chance. I do think that Bellinger's preference is to go back to the Bronx, if I'm being honest. The swing is just made for that stadium, and he had a really good year with the Yankees in 2025. But if the Yankees are going cheap, then there's a very real chance that I think the Mets could steal him away and bring him across town. So Armand is amazing. What is up? Sorry, I got two more before you, though, real quick. Sal Capel, the Mets ticket offices are hearing crickets. Yeah, I would not want to be one of those poor ticket reps right now for the Mets ticket sales, because they are probably hearing it. I mean, imagine Frank Tank calling one of those guys, right? And just going off. And it's not their fault. Poor innocent ticket sale reps. Let's see. Christopher Cancel says, our farm system is light years away. You seriously think our farm system will lead us to a World Series? That's not the objective this year. I don't know where you got any of that. I'm just telling you exactly what David Stearns has told us, which is that the young guys are coming up to play, and it's really not light years away, actually. So I'm going to just have to correct you there. We are probably going to see the debut of Carson Benj, Jet Williams. I think AJ Ewing's a little further away. We already saw the debut of the three young pitchers. I think we will probably see 2 to 3 more in the form of Dylan Ross. I think that Jonathan Santucci may have a chance of coming up at some point this year, Will Watson. And I wouldn't be surprised if we also get a look at another position player, someone that we're really not thinking of right now at the moment. But it's not to say they're going to come up and perform and just be, you know, total professionals immediately and ready to just hit the cover off the ball or dominate an opposing team's lineup. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is the plan that David Stearns has laid out. And the hope is to then sprinkle in some veteran additions along the years now, you know, while those guys are coming into form to make this a World Series and sustainable team. Don't shoot the messenger. Armand is amazing. What is up? He said, did you see the Cody update? No, I didn't. So why don't we do this? I'll share my screen with you guys and we can take a look at what's going on the latest. So Bo Bichette, as I teased earlier, you guys may or may not have known, rumored to have the Phillies on his radar, or maybe vice versa, however you want to say it. But Talking Baseball reporting the Phillies are meeting with Bo Bichette, quote, in the coming days. And it was actually reported by Matt Gelb, who I believe is a Philly reporter. He's a beat writer for The Athletic. Okay, so obviously a trustworthy source there. That would not be good for the Mets if the Phillies get even stronger by adding Bo Bichette. They retained Kyle Schwarber, obviously. And to add Bo Bichette's bat, I guess they would put him at second base with Trey Turner at shortstop. And we already know Bichette is defensively kind of short-handed at shortstop, or inadequate, whatever you want to say. So, yeah, I would not be very happy if the Phillies end up landing Bo Bichette. But it sounds like him and the Blue Jays are far apart on what he's looking for and what they're willing to offer. And we've heard the Blue Jays continue to be interested in Kyle Tucker. And I mean, it just seems to ramp up every day, but I don't know if anyone's going close to what Tucker is actually asking for. So hopefully that's not the case. But Armand, I'm just going to do a quick search of Cody Bellinger and see what pops up here on Twitter. But if you have that for us, that would be really great for me to pull up here on the screen. In the meantime, Christopher Cancel, why doesn't Stearns want to go over 3 years? Why is he so selfish? I mean, not that I think he's not, trying to give the Mets a good team. Obviously, I don't think that's what he's doing. I just think that he is trying to really create a runway for some of these young players to come up and not get bogged down long term with contracts on aging veterans. I mean, we just got out from under that, kind of, partly. I'm going to say this kind of tongue in cheek, because you send off Brandon Nimmo to get out from his deal, but you acquire Marcus Semien, who's 35 years old and has 3 years left. So you're paying that guy till he's 38. Now, I understand you don't want to pay Nimmo when he's 37 and 38 4 or 5 years from now, but that's kind of what David Stearns is trying to do. And I think it's ridiculous to not be willing to go more than 4 years on some of these guys. Someone like Cody Bellinger or Kyle Tucker, even Framber Valdez at 32 years old, I would give a 4-year deal to. But I mean, look, man, it's frustrating. I still have faith in David Stearns, but I completely understand why you would feel that way. And hopefully he will budge and, maybe give someone an option or, something like that, a club option, player option, mutual deal on a 4th or a 5th year, if that's what it takes to get it over the finish line for one of these players. All right, update from Sleeper Mets. According to Brendan Cootie NJ, Cody Bellinger is looking for a 7-year deal in free agency. The Yankees' latest offer exceeds $30 million AAV. That is insane. Cody Bellinger, I'm sorry, but he's not getting a 7-year deal. He's just not. And let me just do a quick search of him so we can pull up his baseball reference, because I do believe he is 31 years old. I just want to confirm that. He is 30, but will be turning 31 in July. So he will spend the first half of this year 30, and then will become 31 years old in the middle of the 2026 season. He's not getting a 7-year deal. I'm sorry. He has been up and down throughout his career. He has had some injury history. And as much as I think he's a great player and a great fit, and I would like him, I just don't see the Mets going that far. And to be honest, any team. It says the Yankees offer exceeds $30 million average annual value. I would guarantee you that's probably a 3-year deal for $30 to $35 million. So say 3 years and $130 million is probably their offer to Cody Bellinger. And this is something that is probably going to be discussed during the upcoming CBA negotiations next offseason, because number one, players are getting to free agency far too late in their baseball lifespan. So teams don't want to pay these guys into their 30s anymore. These guys are not going to get deals when they're on the wrong side of 33, 34 years old. So that's why they're seeking these 7, 8, 9, 10-year deals. It's so rare you get a case of Juan Soto, who hits free agency at 26 only because he debuted at 18, 19 years old in the first place. So this is going to be a big point of discussion in the CBA negotiations between the Players Union and Major League Baseball and the rest of the owner. But to ask for 7 years, it's just not happening on Cody. I mean, that's insane. I would pay him more than $30 million AAV on a 3 to 4 year deal without hesitation. Absolutely. But I don't want Cody Bellinger for his age 36 through 38-year-old season, which is exactly what a 7-year deal would take him through. So I think that is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I mean, it is him and Scott Boras, and I understand that they are going to ask for the moon and hope to at least get close to it, but that ain't happening if you ask me. I don't see any team doing that. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to leave this video a like. Go ahead and do that right now. Subscribe to the channel if you are not already for daily Mets content and Major League Baseball updates all winter long and into the 2026 season. Really appreciate you guys. We got over 4K, and now the goal is to get to 6K for 2026. So like, subscribe, share this video with a baseball fan or a Mets fan in your life. Really appreciate it so much. Let's go back to the chat over here. Let's see. Sal Capella says, Tony, we got a glut of middle infielder. Something's got to give. Stearns has to be cooking something in the trade market. Any chance we can make a blockbuster deal for Hunter Green? I heard rumors. There were rumors on Hunter Green. I think that the Reds have kind of backed off that idea. They would definitely need to be blown away. So it would definitely be a prospect-heavy deal. Those would be the headliners. And then the Mets would also probably still have to add a guy that I think would be of importance to this 2026 MLB roster. Like not just a Luis Angel Acuna or a Ronnie Mauricio kind of like yeah, they've got their feet wet in the big league so far, but not a lot of success. Like, I think they'd ask for like Chet Williams, Brett Beatty, and then probably another top 10 prospect in the Mets system like Ryan Clifford. And that may still not be enough to get Hunter Green from Cincinnati. I mean, this team just beat us out for the final wild card spot next year. And I know that they have to be very fiscally responsible because of just how they operate out there in Cincinnati. But they are not looking to just sell off and hope for a couple prospects to pop for them in a couple years by trading Hunter Green. They want to continue to compete in 2026 and still get a couple of nice prospect pieces that are close to major league ready as well if they were to trade Hunter Green. So I would love it. That would be the ace at the top of the rotation, 1-2 punch with two youngins and him and Nolan McLean. I don't see that happening. We really haven't heard anything on him other than at the very, very beginning of the offseason, but I like the idea there, Sal. Max Bradford says, do you think the Mets have the best trade value with all their prospects? Yeah, I think the Mets have the ability to pull off just about any trade in baseball that's within reason. Any legitimate trade idea, I think the Mets could be the best suitor for, fill in the name of the player. And I think they have the best opportunity to acquire that guy of any of the organizations. They have the best farm system in baseball, according to multiple sources. And Baseball America actually put something up today, which was really encouraging because, you can hear people say the Mets have the best farm in baseball and, you're not exactly sure of the sources. But Baseball America, in my opinion, probably the most trustworthy when it comes to ranking farm systems. And they had some very complimentary things to say about the Mets here today. Let me see if I can find the exact one. But to continue with your question, yeah, I do think that the Mets have the ability to go out and make any trade that is within reason and realistic. It just depends on what David Stearns is willing to part with. And I don't think he's necessarily a prospect hugger, but I do think he kind of wants to get a little more familiarity with this team, with this roster in the early portion of 2026 and kind of get an idea of who he truly believes is a part of the long-term future before trading any of those guys off. So let me see if I can find this article real quick, and then I'm going to come back to the chat. I think it was let's just do Baseball America Mets if I can find it that way. I think it's somewhere. Chris Suero ranked number 14 in the Mets system. There you go. Okay. Well, I can't seem to find it, but that's from 2024. All right, forget it, guys. But it was praising the Mets system, praising their pitching development, which is apparently the best in the game, according to someone very much in the know whose name kind of escapes me right now. Let's see if I can find that one for you guys. Sorry, I'm not really prepared. This feels like high school all over again, right? All right, so here on Foul Territory, Lance Braz. So Lance, player development analyst with Watch Marquee, baseball content creator, went to Northwestern and UMass. Hey, pretty good schools, right? But he said the Mets have the best pitching development farm system in baseball. Quote, they know what they're doing on the personnel side, and they've combined that with a couple of years of really good development in the minor. So that is very encouraging to hear. Yeah, but just to kind of go back to your question there, I do believe the Mets have a very impressive farm system and can get pretty much whatever they wanted to if they choose to pull the trigger. Madeline, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you, Madeline, always checking in on my shorts and on my videos here. It's good to see you, and I hope that you're doing well. Happy New Year to you. Off the cuff, Craig Tucker, 3-130 to the Jays. Wow. If that happened, I would be immensely disappointed in the Mets. That would be an average annual value of like $43 million, right? $43 million per year. At that point, like, why not? Like, go for it, right? Like, it's just money at that point. The Mets are going to be over the luxury tax cap again anyway. So I'd be super disappointed if the Blue Jays were the team that gave him the short-term, high average annual value deal and not the Mets. But I really think it is either long-term deal with the Blue Jays for Kyle Tucker or the Mets or Dodgers giving him that shorter-term, high AAV contract. And let's just please pray to the baseball gods that it is not the Los Angeles Dodgers. Please, 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 we cannot have it. We need to have a seance here. We cannot have Kyle Tucker going to the Blue Jays. Sal Capello, I see them negotiating 5 years of service time in the future. I agree with that. I think that they are going to negotiate the service time. I think they'll probably do away with the Rule 5 draft and all that situation and maybe just allow them to elect free agency at that point. But in terms of, the full control on a team control on a player, yeah, the 7 years is far too long from the moment they debut as a rookie. You have them for their first 7 seasons, and it's a pretty minuscule pay until you start hitting arbitration, and even then it's not a whole lot of money, and then you might have to negotiate a deal to avoid arbitration. So yeah, I am totally with you there, Sal. I do believe they're going to change service time and make it much shorter before these guys can start getting paid the big bucks. Christopher Cancel says, Tony, just curious, do you think Stearns is babying the prospects and protecting them? Is that why he's being cheap on the contracts? I don't think babying or protecting them is like the word. I think he truly does believe in these guys. I believe he is an excellent analyst of player development, of talent. I really do think he is. Look at what the Brewers have become, and that was mostly under his watch and his scouting and his, selections. And I think he really does believe in this group, but we just haven't seen many of them yet. And we are going to see a lot of them, it sounds like, in 2026. So we will see. You never know with prospects, and hopefully they do turn out. Obviously, not every one of them is going to become a star or, even an impact player, but let's hope that a good handful of them do. And then from there, you can start filling in the gaps around that and maybe making some moves with other prospects. If someone's playing, Carson Bellinger comes up and has 22 home runs this year and has a 350 on base percentage. Well, pretty much anyone else that you could expect to assume left field in the future is now available, is, now someone that you can move in a trade. So, E. Moreau, Tony, good chat and great info. Mets got to stay with their minor leaguers and blend them with the lineup they currently have. The kids have talent to help out. Let's go, Mets. Thank you, Moreau. I appreciate it very much. Yeah, exactly what I'm saying. That's a perfect way to put it more succinctly than I possibly can. Mets got to stay with their major leaguers and blend them with the lineup, or with their minor leaguers and blend it with the lineup they already have. Absolutely. And we don't want to hear it, but it's the truth. This is how the Mets are going to go about it. And if a deal makes sense where the market comes back to them on Kyle Tucker, on Cody Bellinger, the same for the pitching staff in terms of Framber Valdez and Ranger Suarez, or if there's a good trade out there, position player or pitcher, the Mets will jump on it. But they have a price, they have a line in the sand, and it does not sound like they are going to cross it until they have a better understanding of what these minor leaguers that are ready to debut are capable of. Armand's amazing. Lance is who's Lance? Lance Bros. Lance Bros? Oh, Lance is the guy I just quoted in this. Sorry, Armand. Armand, you wouldn't know who that is. Let's see. Anything else? Lance is very good. Jimmy James C, my man, Pots and Pans in the chat. What is up, Jimmy James? Good to see you. Howdy, y'all. Club fight. Won't be long before Stearns signs Walker Buehler. Oh, that might be a problem. That might make Mets fans' heads actually explode. I said that earlier about the Yankee fans, but that might actually make Mets fans' heads explode. Although Walker Buehler didn't pitch too terrible there toward in the last month and a half or so of the season with the Phillies, but no, not interested whatsoever. Dude seems like his arm is cooked. He's had a great career, but it sounds like it's kind of over. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot going on in terms of the baseball world, unfortunately. We're hearing the Kyle Tucker, the Cody Bellinger stuff, and unfortunately, guys, we are just kind of left here waiting to see what happens. But let's go to the Bellinger report in terms of what the Yankees offered him. Reportedly above $30 million AAV. The Yankees have made multiple offers to Cody Bellinger in recent weeks. Brendan Cootie of The Athletic reports that the most recent had an average annual value north of $30 million. However, the sides are still held up on contract length. And that's what tells me that he is ultimately going to go back to the Bronx. I think the money is right, but the Yankees, just like the Mets and just like how I am feeling, do not want to give Cody Bellinger a 7-year contract. That is just ludicrous, if you ask me. Again, turning 31 years old in July. When did 31 years old become such a problem in Major League Baseball? I don't know, but this is how they're operating, and I've seen it firsthand. We have all seen it firsthand, where guys get into their 30s and rapidly decline. So you don't want to be paying that kind of guy that much money 4, 5, 6 years from now. So I would be more than happy to give Cody Bellinger this contract. Let's just call it $32 million AAV for 4 years. I will do that to his age 35 season. no problem. You slide him into center field to start the year for the Mets, or left field. You put him at first base if you need it at times. And he basically roves around the entire field for the Mets, depending on how some of these prospects come up and perform. I would do it 100%. I am on record saying that. The same for Kyle Tucker. I have said, hey, he's not getting the 10-year deal. I'll give him the 7-year deal, give him $260 million, front loaded to $40 million in the first year, and give him an opt-out after 2026. He let him retest the market as a 29-year-old in 2027 if he so chooses. Who knows what baseball and the landscape of the league is going to look like given the negotiations for the CBA next year. I think that'd be a risky move on his part, but you're still giving him the average, I was going to say AAV, the average annual value that he was seeking entering this year. But these 10-year contracts, they rarely work out. And I hate to break it to y'all, and you probably already know it. We're going to get burned on the Juan Soto contract by year 10, probably. Like, we are probably not going to be loving Juan Soto years 11 through 15 of this contract when he is 37 to 41 years old. And I am fully okay with that because we are getting him in his prime. The problem and the reason why the Mets and so many other teams are hesitant to give these long-term deals to a guy like Cody Bellinger, and kind of even with Kyle Tucker, although he'll be turning 29 relatively soon, is you don't want to be regretting these contracts, paying them in their 30s. It feels like most of their prime is already behind them. So you're going to be paying these guys all these big bucks for them to essentially just continue to decline. And you have to basically weigh it. And the risk management is, okay, we can get 4 to 5 good years out of this guy, but the last 2 or 3 of an 8-year contract, they're going to suck. It's going to be bad. Are we in a position to win a World Series with him in his prime in those first couple years? That is essentially how these guys are evaluating contracts with these free agents, especially when they are approaching or already in their 30s. So, Sal Cabell says another trade possibility is for Pivetta and Mason Miller. If Stearns could pull that off, it'd be a game-changing move. Well, Sal, unfortunately, I got some bad news for you. The Mets were talking to the Padres earlier in the offseason about Mason Miller. Talking may actually be a bit loose of a term because according to John Heyman, quote, talks between the Mets and Padres surrounding all-star closer Mason Miller never really went anywhere, per John Heyman. A potential blockbuster trade could have involved Pivetta, Laureano Morejon, and Estrada, but the Padres were looking for, quote, an overwhelming return. So that is a pipe dream. It does not sound like the Mets were actually serious about giving them anything worthwhile. I mean, I shouldn't say that, but it doesn't sound like the Mets were willing to give close to what the Padres were seeking in a potential deal that could have involved Morejon and Miller and Ramon Laureano. So, yeah, I don't think that is going to happen, unfortunately, at this point in the offseason. We have heard the Mets are still talking and uncovering all the stones in the trade market. We have heard that they're willing to trade from their glut of infielders in Ronnie Mauricio, Luis Angel Acuna, Mark Vientos. We have not heard Brett Beatty's name listed in that, and that makes sense given how he performed in 2025 and, you know, the assumed third baseman at this point. But the Mets are active in the trade market, but haven't seemingly found any partners at this point for what they're looking to accomplish, or at least for the price that the Mets are willing to pay to do those things. So unfortunately, it looks like we are just here still sitting on our hands and waiting for some news. Moreau says Mets got credibility with the minor leaguers when the fan base and with Citi Field, which the Mets lost when the baseball genius let go 4 fan favorites. New Mets will do that with minor leaguers. Yeah, I mean, guys, look, we were all super disappointed. Not disappointed, rather, but we were all, not totally sure who Pete Alonso was going to be. We weren't sure who Brandon Nimmo was going to be. They came up with, prospect pedigree. Brandon Nimmo was a former first rounder. Pete Alonso was a former second rounder out of Florida. And there was hype about them. They were top-ranked prospects for a number of years in the Mets system, but you never truly knew what they were going to be. And yeah, they became fan favorites. They're also both now on the wrong side of 30. They both also are expensive. I'm not saying I didn't want them anymore or that I'm not disappointed that they're not on the Mets any longer. But what I will say is these new guys that are going to come up will have every chance in the world to be as or more beloved than Brandon Nimmo and Pete Alonso were. In the case of Edwin Diaz, I've been on record saying they completely foobarred that. It was a horrible, horrible job of handling the negotiations, and that is one that I always will not hold against David Stearns, but it is a mark on his track record where he completely messed up on the negotiations with Edwin Diaz. I will give you that. But let's see what happens. Let's see if Devin Williams returns to his Milwaukee form. Let's see if this kid Dylan Ross comes up and maybe is going to be an impact arm out of the pen, or if Will Watson develops into a top reliever. This is something I complained about all season long during my post-game streams about why do we have all these guys, the Rico Garcias and Chris Stavinsky's and Brandon Waddells of the world coming up and down and getting DFA'd? How come the Mets never develop a relief pitcher? And they usually start as starters and then they become relievers because of one reason or another. But name the last legitimate relief pitcher the Mets have developed. I'll wait. Please go ahead in the chat. And if you tell me Drew Smith, I'm going to end the stream right now. Okay. They have not developed a legitimate reliever that has had an impact on this team and become one of the top relievers in baseball in years. I mean, really, the last one I could truly name, and he had his warts, was Yuris Familia. And besides that, please, I dare you to tell me who was the last reliever the Mets truly developed that became one of the top relievers in baseball. There are just not many. So that could all change. Getting back to my point here with Edwin Diaz departing. Maybe the Mets believe in some of these guys in their system that are coming up that are almost MLB ready and are going to step into that role. I'll give the Yankees a little bit of a shout out here, a little bit of credit. What do the Yankees do? How often do the Yankees go out and go get the top reliever in baseball? How often do they go sign the most coveted closer that's available? Not too often. Yeah, they traded for he's on the Mets. They traded for Devin Williams last year from Milwaukee, right? But other than that, the Yankees have consistently developed extremely good relievers through their system and brought them up and kept the bullpen cheap and made some minor additions along the way at the trade deadline. So I would like the Mets to start being able to do that from their own farm system. And the same for the pitching staff, the same for the starting rotation. You know, we all want to go out and sign Tarik Skubal to a $400 million contract next year. The easiest, smartest, most economical way to build a pitching staff, and specifically your starting rotation, is to develop them in your farm. Go back to 2015. Look at what the Mets did with that whole crew of Harvey, Syndergaard, DeGrom, Wheeler, and Matt. And that is how it was supposed to go. Obviously, they had their injuries and it did not pan out. But that was the smart way to go about it. And that is how most good teams go about it, barring the Dodgers, who could just do whatever they want, right? Because they're baseball's gift to earth. Carson A, what's up? Oh, now we want Diaz, Tony. Come a long way. Yeah, well, you guys know I'm a former member of Mets Weekly. Carson, Frank, Andrew still doing a great job holding it down over there. And yes, in the early tenure of Edwin Diaz with the Mets, I was not a fan. And you know what? Rightfully so. Okay, Carson? No, not many Mets fans were a fan of him, except you with your nerdy analytics and his slider shape, okay? But I came around on Diaz, and it was before the 2022 season, all right? So I get credit for that. But we will miss Edwin Diaz. I think we will. I think it's going to hurt. And that is one thing that Dexter Henry pointed out in my interview with him. You could hear it at the very end of that clip where he said the Mets need Devin Williams to get off to a good start in 2026 because the fan base is already ready to just rip and just go crazy with the boos. Now imagine Devin Williams' position of replacing a loved Met in Edwin Diaz. If he gets off to a bad start, that is not going to be good for the 2026 Mets outlook. Mookie is agreeing with I don't know if you guys could hear him barking over here. Guys, leave this video a like, subscribe to the channel, go hit those buttons right now if you've not already. I really appreciate it. We'll probably go for another 10 minutes or so. I'm just kind of rambling at this point because there is nothing to talk about in the MLB offseason, unfortunately. Tony HVAC, how are you blaming Stearns for Diaz when he didn't want to be here? Stearns offered $366, which is record numbers. I will say this. It was on both sides. Blame goes to both sides. In the way I think that Stearns handled the negotiations, but also in how Edwin Diaz did. It was a little radish. It was a little squirrely the way that Edwin Diaz handled the negotiations with the Mets. So the Mets gave him that offer, and then the Dodgers gave him the offer that was only $3 million more. Edwin Diaz said it. He wanted to go to the Dodgers because he wanted a chance to win. And so Diaz decided to never go back to the Mets. I don't know why, but the Mets also, in my opinion, kind of acted smug, thinking they were going to keep him no matter what. And I think they would have given him more money and a more appealing deal But Diaz didn't even give him the opportunity, and I'm sorry, but that's kind of on the Mets, and it's kind of the way they handled Pete Alonso's situation. I don't think they wanted Pete at all, but the Mets never offered him a contract this offseason. And you even heard David Stern say in an interview earlier this winter, we don't really need to meet with Pete. We kind of know everything about each other already. Those were almost verbatim the words that he said about Pete Alonso. And before you know it, Pete's in Baltimore on a 5-year, $155 million deal. So I blame both David Stearns and the Mets front office, along with Edwin Diaz and his agent camp, because they came out and tried spewing it and twisting the narrative as well. So I don't know what to truly believe, but from everything I have gathered, there should be blame on both sides. I will definitely give you that there, Tony. Joe Saturn, Randy Myers was the last closer the Mets developed before Familia. I remember Randy Myers, man. I remember when he was pitching for the Diamondbacks, and I actually went to whatever they call it now, Chase Field. It used to be Bank One Ballpark when I was a kid, but I went there in 2002, like maybe the second or third year of that stadium. First of all, crazy. It was an indoor stadium with air conditioning in Arizona. I was like, what is going on? I was like 7 or 8 at the time. But I remember Randy Myers coming in. I remember them panning to a guy that was wearing a Michael Myers mask from the movie Halloween. So just a core memory in my brain still. So it's so funny that you bring that up. Guys, I don't really know what else to talk about, if I'm being totally honest with you. There's just not a whole lot going on. I'll keep it here, and we'll talk a little more, and I'll field some more of your chats. Tarik Skubal likely headed to arbitration hearing with $13 million gap in filing figures. My goodness, the Tigers just can't get out of their own way. We heard about the gap they had in contract negotiations, and it was something like they offered him less than $100 million over like 4 years or something like that. I mean, not even close to what Tarik Skubal is going to get in free agency. And now there's a $13 million gap for their filing figures where he's going to go to arbitration. Oh, to be a fly on that courtroom wall or wherever they handle that stuff. That would be so fun to watch. The Tigers, I mean, man, I want to root for the Tigers. I have no ill will toward them at all, but man, they just can't figure it out. No, I'm willing to spend whatsoever. Carson says they should have preliminary offered 4 years, but you can't hold a guy hostage if he wants to go elsewhere. Stars come and go. World is still spinning. Yep, 100%. I would have given Diaz the 4 years, 100%, without a doubt. I think it would have kept him here. You would have had to bump up the pay for the overall guaranteed money, but that's something I was willing to do. And even if the last year or two that he wasn't that elite closer anymore, it could still be a elite setup guy potentially. I know they don't like to transition out of a closer role. It's like a very personal thing for them, but I would have done it. 4 years for Diaz. It would have made this offseason, I think, feel a lot better, especially because they'd already signed Devin Williams and they anticipated having him as the setup guy for Edwin Diaz. So I'd be feeling a lot better despite the loss of Pete and trading Brandon Nimmo. Man, at least we traded Jeff McNeil, right, guys? Two cats. Come on down to Shake Shack and City Fuel for our new Marcus Simeon flavored shakes. A great treat to end a 12-2 loss to the Dodgers. All right. At first, I was like, come on. But now, when you ended it 12-2 against the Dodgers, yeah, that is probably a very likely outcome against LA, especially if they do, in fact, end up signing Kyle Tucker. I will give you that, two cats. Brad Avernow says Stearns never wanted Pete, and if Stearns overpaid Diaz 4 years, $90 million, he would still be a Met, most likely. Yeah. He definitely would still be a Met, without a doubt. I mean, 3 years, $69 million is what he got from the Dodgers, so that was $33 million AAV. I think if you went to 4 years, $90 million, and that $90 million is obviously guaranteed, that, yeah, Edwin Diaz would still be a Met. So, again, I think it was a really weird situation, and both sides deserve blame. I think that Edwin Diaz is trying to twist the narrative. I think that David Stearns and their team in the front office got a little too cocky and confident in their ability to retain him, and they didn't go the extra mile. And I'm sorry, but when you're coming off the year that the Mets just came off of, you kind of have to go the extra mile to get some of these guys, even the ones that were already on your roster, and convince them, hey, things are going to get better. Things are not going to go as off the tracks, off the rails as they did in 2025. Club Feet says, I don't know, Club Fight, have you ever been to an All-Star game? I'm considering taking a trip to Philly for it. I did not realize the All-Star game is in Philly this year. I would definitely not go because it's Philly, but I have. And the only All-Star game I ever went to was the 2013 All-Star game at Citi Field. So that was sick. Harvey started that game. David Wright started at third base for the National League. I don't think Wright had a hit. He may have, I can't remember, but Harvey pitched 2 innings, and that was awesome. Had those orange cleats on. That was really cool. My uncle brought me with my cousin, so that was a great experience getting to go to the All-Star game at Citi Field back in 2013. I don't really anticipate going to another one in my lifetime. A home run derby would be pretty cool. I would like to do that to sit in the outfield seats, really, only try to get a ball. But no, I don't really think I'll probably go to another All-Star game again in my lifetime unless I'm just given the opportunity to do it. But you should go, man. Definitely go even if it is in Philly, right? Game for War. I loved Randy Myers on the Mets. They called him Wilding, and the fans sung Major League Movie's Wilding song, and he came in. It was freaking amazing. I always hated Franco, who they traded him for. John Franco has such a weird legacy with the Mets because he's a Brooklyn-born guy, grew up a Mets fan. Father, I think, was an FDNY member, and like just New York through and through, a Met through and through. But like, let's be honest. Yes, he has the most saves in Mets history, but it wasn't all good with Johnny Franco. He would give you agita from the moment he took the mound a lot of the time. And I'm not disrespecting him at all. And if I ever saw him, I would hope he never sees this. But from what I remember, yeah, Johnny Franco, you know, a little bit of agita when he would come in and try to close out games. But what Met closer doesn't do that to us? And hey, even Edwin Diaz, who we're all so upset that he left us here this winter, used to do it to us a lot, even in some of his best seasons with New York Mets. So it is what it is. I guess it's a franchise right. Two Cats. I need the Mets to be good this year. I'm disgusted by watching this garbage Rangers product on the ice. Had a power play chance to tie the game and gave up a shorthanded goal. Well, you know who the perfect person to talk to about that is Carson from Mets Weekly, who I think is a contributor or still does a Rangers podcast here on YouTube or some way on Twitter. So go find his information because I do not watch hockey. I do not watch any hockey at all. But I'm sorry to hear that. I am an Islanders fan. If I had to pick a New York team, I would definitely root for the Islanders if they're in the playoffs. But I do not watch regular season hockey whatsoever. My Knicks, on the other hand, glad they got off the schneid yesterday and beat the Clippers yesterday. So that was good to end that little skid that they were on. So happy about the Knicks. And I think they got as good a chance to go represent the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals this year as anybody. But those pesky Detroit Pistons, they could give us a problem. They could be a real issue as they really smacked them around the other day. But let's see, Two Cats, never-ending suffering cycle. Hey, at least you're probably not a Jets fan like I am. I mean, I basically got to watch one game this year, the first week of the season, with a little bit of hope for the Jets, and they still lost to Aaron Rodgers in his return to MetLife Stadium. The Jets scored 34 points or something with Justin Fields, greatest game of his career, and the defense gave up 37 points. Okay, so at least you're probably not a Jets fan. At least I hope not. Two Cats. What is up, Carlos Ortiz? Good to see you, my man. I hope that you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, Orion Kirkering. That is a tough one, and that was too funny though when it happened. All right, real quick, let me just go to here. The Tarik Skubal situation. Tarik Skubal. Tigers did not reach an agreement with two-time Cy Young winner Tarik Skubal on a deal to avoid arbitration. They're now likely headed for what would be the most significant hearing in memory. That's due to an astronomical $13 million gap in the side's prospective filing figures. Mark Feinstein of MLB.com reports that Skubal is seeking $32 million, while the Tigers filed at $19 million. The sides are free to continue negotiations right up to the hearing time, but teams typically adopt a file and trial approach and cease talks on one-year deals after figures are exchanged. Wow. So I wonder how this impacts the potential for the Tigers to deal Tarik Skubal. Because if he's not going to come off that number, they may just decide this guy, I mean, he's obviously worth it, but the Tigers are just penny pinchers. So they may just decide, we're done. Let's just cash our chips in now and call it a day. Wipe our hands clean. Let some other team pay him this year's arbitration and, whatever you want to call it. And he can be their problem now. Obviously, you don't look at Tarik Skubal as a problem, but the Tigers are just strapped for cash, apparently. They don't want to pay the best pitcher in baseball. So I do wonder if this increases the likelihood of them trading Skubal before the season begins. I have kind of, in the last month or so, accepted that he's more than likely, if he gets traded at all, to have it happen at the trade deadline in the middle of 26. But curious if this might impact their thoughts and make them think, look, let's just get it over with. We know we're not going to retain him. We know we're not going to re-sign him at the end of this year. Let's get as many prospects back as we can. Let's not even bother having to pay his first half salary and just be done with it. So that is really interesting. $13 million gap. He filed for 32. They offered 19 essentially. That is wild. Game for war. Everyone knows that what Stearns got Devin Williams, he was going to use him as leverage against Diaz by saying, hey, we already got a closer, but Diaz got smart. Didn't let him penny pinch him down like that. Yeah. Or like Alonso. You're right. And Will Salmon said the same thing when I interviewed him a couple months ago before Diaz ended up signing with the Dodgers. But we had heard, I mean, I think even before the season ended, that the Dodgers were going to be in hot pursuit of Edwin Diaz. So it's not like they just came out of nowhere. The deal kind of came out of nowhere, but we already knew that the one weakness the Dodgers had was a closer. They tried to make it happen with what's his yuck from the Marlins last year. I can't even think of his name right now, but he was a total bust for them. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up rebounding. Tanner what? You know who I'm talking about. But they gave him that big deal. It didn't work out. They had a variety of different closers for them this year. They still win the World Series, but it's still a weakness. And they go out and get the best closer available on the market in Edwin Diaz. So we already heard these rumors before the season even ended that the Dodgers were going to be hot for Edwin Diaz. And David Stearns, that's where I place some blame on him. It's like he acted like smug in a manner that he just assumed that Diaz was going to come back to him with an offer and let the Mets match it or beat it. But I think Diaz just decided, you know what, man? Things are going off the rails here in New York. I got more money from the Dodgers. I got a chance to go win a World Series. I got a chance to go live in Los Angeles. Why not? Even though I don't know why anyone would want to live in Los Angeles. Take it from me, a personal account. But let's see. Two Cats Giants. Thankfully, they were a decent 4-13 team. Not going to lie. Yeah. I mean, they probably should have won that Broncos game, that Saints game, that first Cowboys game. So, yeah, the Giants definitely dropped the ball, but I think there's a lot more promise for you there than for Gang Green. No doubt about that. Armando Mason, just remember, Corbin Burns was traded on February 1st, 2024 to Baltimore. That's a great point, Armand. Yeah, look, things can happen way late into the offseason and even approaching pitchers and catchers. So just like Armand said, Corbin Burns looked like he was going to finish his final year out with of team control with the Brewers. They end up shipping him out to Baltimore, and then he ends up hitting free agency, signing the big-time contract with the Diamondbacks this past offseason, and look how that has turned out. Tommy John surgery. Who knows what he'll be again now that he's on the wrong side of 30. So I say all this just to caution everybody. Look, we all want these big moves. We all want Framber Valdez. We all want them to throw $400 million over 10 years for Tarik Skubal for him to pitch in his 30s. But these are the things, these are the warning signs that GMs are aware of, that we as fans need to remind ourselves of sometimes. Yes, it's great if you could just take the back of their baseball card, the numbers, and just slap it down and insert it into the Mets roster, but that is not always how it works. So we'll see what happens, guys. Darren Rivera, LGM. Thank you, Darren, LGM. I think we kind of have to retire LFGM, don't we now, with Pete gone? I think we should, honestly. Pete coined it in 2019. He said LFGM on a live field interview with Steve Gelbs after a walk-off win. So with Pete Alonso gone, I feel like we have no choice but to get rid of LFGM. We got rid of OMG after Jose Iglesias left last year, although that was definitely just a 2024 thing. But with Pete Alonso in Baltimore now, LFGM may have to be retired, and we may just have to go back to LGM, and I'm okay with that. That's fine with me. Two Cats, you think Cohen goes homeless spending money on the Mets before they win a championship? Oh my gosh. No, I mean, I think that's impossible for Steve Cohen, given how his bountiful wealth, but it's the Mets after all, and we can find a way to screw up anything, right? So maybe Two Cats. The Steve Cohen story, how the Mets robbed him blind, right? Oh my gosh. I really hope not. Meezy BX says Bichette would be more of an option for the Mets. Let him play third base, some first base and DH. Then you could use Beatty as a utility guy and trade Vientos in a package for pitching. Hey, I don't hate that idea at all. I have been more than open to either Alex Bregman or Bo Bichette. Problem is now with Marcus Semien clogging up second base, I just don't think that Bichette would fare well at third base considering his struggles at shortstop. I do know it's obviously more ground to cover shortstop, especially up the middle and coming in on ground balls. So maybe he'd do a little bit better at third base, but I think he's most likely destined to become a second baseman with whatever team he does eventually sign with. And obviously the Mets don't have an opportunity for him in this on this team right now with Marcus Semien taking that up. Brett Beatty, I like at third base. I don't love. I'm still not convinced. I need to see it from him again here in 2026, not just in little spurts like we have seen over the last several years, but entering the season, he is obviously the starting third baseman. And then in terms of Mark Vientos, I think the Mets really have to like what they're getting back in a trade to give up on Vientos. I think that they've come around on him a little bit. He had a bit of a resurgent second half despite kind of slumping at the very end of the year again. But I do think they see him as the more than often DH of this team. So I think the Mets have to really like what they would be getting back in a trade for Mark Vientos. I think Luis Angel Acuna, Ronnie Mauricio are definitely available. I'd say Ronnie less likely just because he does have an option and can go to AAA, but also does make him a little bit more valuable for a potential trading team to acquire him. But Darren Rivera, Mets have to go above and beyond to acquire free agent, especially when competing with Jays and Dodgers. Yeah, I mean, dude, when you come off the season the Mets just came off of, you really got to convince them that you are heading on the right path and that you are going to get things back on track. So, yeah, it is kind of like a Mets tax all over again. Back when they were really bad under the Wilpons, you had to convince teams, or players, yeah, we're going to compete for a title and for even just to make the playoffs. Mets are almost in that situation again until proven otherwise. So Armand's amazing. Bo's defense is bad at short, so his defense will be bad at third. That's why he's considering moving to second base. Yeah, and I think that's where he will end up signing, is to be a second baseman somewhere. I think Philly would be actually a good fit, as much as I hate to say it, just because they really don't have a second baseman. I know Bryson Stott has played there a lot. I don't think Stott's a very good player. He's fine, but I think they would obviously, immensely upgrade their team with Bo Bichette. Other than that, guys, there is not a whole lot. Brady Singer, a potential trade target for the Mets, just avoided arbitration with Cincinnati for $11.9 million, or what is that, $12.75 million. Wow. I don't know if I want Brady Singer on that deal, but okay, not terrible, I guess. Probably middle of the pack. Best fits on Cody Bellinger. It's a private one. We don't have a membership here. Hey, Chris Stavinsky, former Met, heading to the Pirates on a minor league deal. Well, guys, that's the end of the Chris Stavinsky story for the Mets. He actually wasn't terrible if you look at his numbers. He really wasn't, but definitely not someone that I was interested in a reunion with. But knowing Chris Stavinsky and any of those other guys that were coming in on the Mets roster by Ubers from Syracuse and from wherever they were getting signed from, would not be surprised if he somehow finds his way back into a Mets uniform at some point in 2026. Measy BX says Bichette market might come back to the 3 or 4 year deals that everybody seems to think Stearns prefers. I don't think in the case of Bichette, only because he's 27, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 28. Let me double check that really quick. But Bo Bichette is young, and I mean, yeah, he's obviously not great defensively, but maybe a move to second base will fix that for him. As my camera gets kicked out of the way by accident, he is 27. He's entering his age 28 season though. So yeah, he'll turn 28 in like less than 2 months, March. Yeah. So he will be entering his age 28 season. So I don't see him signing for just a 3 or 4 year deal. I think at minimum he's going to get 6, maybe 5 if his market really craters. But Bichette's coming off a great year. I mean, dude has led the American League in hits multiple seasons. Again, above a 300 average. Not that people care about batting average, but still decent power numbers, drives and runs, good on base percentage, 840 OPS this past year, career 806 OPS, but that was after a little bit of a rough start at various times in the beginning of his career. But I think Bo Bichette is going to get a longer term deal than just 3 or 4 year deals. I could be wrong. I've been wrong about a lot of things already this offseason. Didn't think Pete Alonso was leaving. Didn't think that Bo Bichette was, or that Edwin Diaz was leaving. Didn't think that the Mets were going to be in the situation that they're in right now at this very moment. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Just want to check in with you here before the end of the week, at least the end of the week in terms of baseball coverage. It doesn't seem like things ever seem to happen over the weekends. But, this is the place to tune in when it does eventually happen. Whether the Mets sign a guy or trade for a guy, or if a guy the Mets were linked to ends up going elsewhere, this is the place to hear all about it. Be sure to subscribe. Go ahead and hit that button right now if you have not already. And leave this video a like. I really appreciate it. It goes a long way toward helping the channel out. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in and just hanging out with me, chatting baseball, talking shop, chopping it up here. So I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Links to all those videos or all of those platforms are in the description of this video down below. And go watch my interview with SMY's Dexter Henry on my channel right now. Just posted that about 2 hours ago. Really enjoyed the conversation with him. And be sure to go follow him on all of his platforms as well. Tremendous job covering the Mets and all things New York sports. So I want to thank Dexter for joining me on that as well. And I want to thank you guys for joining me right now. That's going to do it, though. Until next time, though, I'm Tony Metro. Stay true to the orange and blue.